Today we're making the world's largest conversation heart and a cake. Hi guys, I'm Jen Johns. Welcome back to the show. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a giant conversation heart. It's completely edible and it tastes just like the original mini ones that I've got covering this in cake entirely. Also inside the cake are hidden hearts, so it's got a whole bunch of elements to this cake that I can't wait to show you how to make. Now, if you don't know what a conversation heart is, they are little candies that are usually found in stores around Valentine's Day, and they have little messages on them. I found ones in my pile that say like page me and fax me, so I'm not quite sure how long these were on the shelf at the store. Let's get started on this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to do is make the world's biggest conversation heart, and it's actually really easy. If you don't want to make a giant one, you can make them into little mini ones too. What we're going to do is take 3/4 teaspoon of unflavored gelatin, and we're going to mix it with 1/4 cup of clear soda. What I'm using is ginger ale. You could also use club soda, or you could use like Sprite or 7-Up. The clearer it is, the less it's going to affect the overall color. So I'm just going to stir this a little bit with a spatula. And once it's kind of settled down, I'm going to pop it into the microwave, and I'm going to heat it for about 30 seconds or even up to a minute, because I want to make sure that my gelatin is completely dissolved. So what we're going to put into a large bowl next is about 2 cups of icing sugar or confectioner's sugar. Now I've got about 3 cups in here, so I'm not going to add all of it in. We're just going to kind of want to work it until we can get a perfect consistency of our conversation heart. So we've got that into our bowl here. We're going to add in our melted gelatin / soda mixture in there. And then if you want to add any flavoring, you could use an extract or you could use candy flavoring. Here I've got a cherry candy, which is going to give it a little bit of pink color, and it's also going to give it a cherry flavor. So you can pour that in at this point too. So we're going to give that whole dram into there. Candy flavoring is awesome because it's really strong. And then just to add it a little bit more color, if you want to, just add a little drop or squeeze of gel paste, and this is deep pink, to mix that in. Now I'm going to take my spatula and I'm just going to stir it until I get a nice consistency. And what I'm looking for is almost something that feels like fondant or even Play-Doh if you're more familiar with that. If it's too sticky, add more icing sugar. And if it's too dry, well, you got to start over. So I've transferred my mixture to a non-stick silicone mat. It's just going to make it a little bit easier at the end here. So mine's still a little bit sticky, so I'm just going to add in some more of the icing sugar until I get that real true, like, you don't want it to be too dry or it will crack a little bit easier, but you want to make sure that it's not so sticky that it's going to stick to like your rolling pin and your hands, of course. So just continue to kind of knead it and get that icing sugar worked in here on the mat. So once you've got it nice and consistent, it's not sticky anymore, it'll feel just like fondant. You can start to work it as if you would with actual fondant. So I've got a fondant smoother here, and you can also roll it out. And I'm just kind of trying to get those 2 arcs there for the top of the heart. I want to use as much as I can, so I'm trying to kind of make sure that I don't have to cut too much off. So I'm going to line up my cutter just like that, and then I'm going to press it down into the candy heart. There we go. You could peel off the outside stuff and you can put that aside. You could add it to the top if you really wanted to, or you can make little mini conversation hearts out of it. Now, what we're going to do with the heart itself is you just want to carefully pick it up, and then we're going to move it into place so we can insert a dowel. So with the dowel here, what we're going to have to do is we want to be able to have some way to stick it into the cake and have it stay there. So I'm just starting with like a barbecue skewer, because that's going to make my hole kind of nice and basically be a guide hole here. And then I've got a cake dowel. It's a plastic cake dowel. Just inserting that up the skewer and then into the top here. If you get any bulging, just use your fondant smoother, and you just want to, I'm just wiggling it while I'm putting it in there. So now this has to dry, and it's going to take about probably 24 to 48 hours even to dry. 24 for sure, in order for you to be able to write on it with an edible writer, which we're going to do up next. So put it somewhere off to the side where it's got a chance to dry. Now, using a edible writer, we're going to write the message onto our heart. I'm going to write TXT me. So I've just got my guidelines there, and I'm just going to go over it once to start, and then I'm going to go over it a second time and thicken up my letters. That way, if I've made any mistakes, I can kind of fix them a little bit easier. So I'm just going to continue writing, and then you can set this off to the side as it's going to be one of the last elements of our cake that we put on. So now we're going to work on the cake. Ahead of time, you want to put together 2 6-inch round cakes. One I've got colored pink and one I've got colored purple. These I both did with my vanilla cake batter. Now you can find the recipe on cookiescupcakesandcardio.com, or it's also linked in the description box below. Now in a 6-inch round baking pan, I have about a cup of raw cake batter, and we're going to be baking that up next. So what we're going to do is take our cake, we're going to use one color per layer, so you're going to have to repeat this process for both of these colored cakes. So I'm taking out a wedge of this purple cake, and then I'm taking a heart-shaped cookie cutter, and I'm just going to press that through the cake here to get a nice heart-shaped little piece of the purple cake here. And obviously you could use any color that you wanted for your cakes in here. And then you just want to take your heart shape and you're going to put it upside down into your cake batter, just like that. And we're going to repeat that process over again. And like I said, you'll want to do the same thing again for the pink. So again, we're just going to cut out a heart shape here and then place it into the cake batter here. Once we've got our ring of purple hearts in our cake batter, we're going to take our raw cake batter that I've just got in a piping bag just for convenience, and I'm going to fill in the gaps here. Now you want to make sure you cover your cake up completely. It's like wrapping it in a nice little warm blanket, because that's going to help keep it moist when we bake it. So we're going to put it into a preheated oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake it for about 55 to 60 minutes, and you want to make sure that it's completely finished before you remove it. Then let it cool completely and then level it off. Once we have the cakes baked and leveled, what we're going to do is take some pink buttercream. Again, I have the recipe for my vanilla buttercream, which I'm using here, on the blog and in the description box. You can even click the I in the little top corner, and that will take you right to the recipe as well. So cover your center here with the buttercream, and then we're going to take our second layer. So one layer has the purple heart, one layer has the pink hearts, and we're going to place this one on top like that. And then we need to cover the entire cake in the pink buttercream. Once we have the cake covered in the pink buttercream, we're going to move on to placing our conversation hearts along the bottom to start off. I found it was easier to line them all on the bottom, because then you know exactly where the bottom is and you don't have to squish in the hearts if you start from the top, and then sometimes they don't fit when you get to the bottom, and that's super annoying after you've spent all this time trying to fit them onto your cake. So I'm just putting 2 at a time of each color. And if you haven't noticed, some of the conversation hearts are actually in French, because we in Canada have a we are a bilingual country, which means we have 2 different main languages. So what I'm doing here is just offsetting them. And that I'm just making sure that that's going to give that illusion of them moving up the cake. It kind of makes it look a little bit more interesting. So 2 at a time, like I've said, and then I'm going to spend the next probably half an hour tediously putting on these little conversation hearts onto the cake. Once you have all of the hearts placed in the cake properly, so you don't have any mistakes, you'll notice them right away if there's anything out of place. We're going to take some flowers. Now I've got a combination of pink and white carnations here, and I'm just placing them around the outside here. If you are super worried about the flower coming in contact with your cake, you could put down like a little layer of saran wrap if you wanted to. But since I've cleaned them, they're perfectly fine to sit on top here. So what I would do is just go around and cover the entire top with the flowers. Then I also want to be able to put my giant conversation heart on the top too. So I'm going to take a dowel or a little skewer here. I'm just going to drill it through the cake again for kind of like a pilot hole. And then I'm going to take my dried conversation heart and then place it into the cake. So I'm going to finish this off, put the rest of my flowers on, and decorate my board, and I'm going to show you guys that afterwards. So there you go, everybody, how to make this giant conversation heart cake for Valentine's Day. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I've extended the conversation hearts from the cake down onto the board. Now you could stick those on with icing, or you could use fondant on your board and then press them into the fondant. I've also sliced into the cake so you can see the hearts that are baked into the inside. My favorite thing about conversation hearts is reading the sayings on them. Some of them, of course, are super corny, and some of them apparently are very old. But the one I found on the cake that was my favorite was, of course, cupcake. How perfect is that for me and for this cake? Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys all again next time.